How many of you, the viewer, would consider that you are awoken? Spiritually awoken to a similar sort of extent that... Yay, how you doing? Selfie. A similar sort of extent that I speak about, I convey. And, it really is difficult for me to give you the insights that I have and that I've got in a mediocre, all-forgiving sort of way. I listen to people delivering esoteric in YouTube videos, and it's like watching paint dry, really. There's no life force there, there's no expression, there's no knowing it. I listen to these people speaking about the Kabbalah, and they're Jews, and they've got all the fucking beard going on and all that stuff, but they don't speak about it from a place that knows. And when we listen to religious people, Christians and Muslims, wherever they're coming from, they're not coming from what they're talking about. And that's what I grapple with. I really struggle with it. Who out there actually knows what they're talking about? Who out there has actually experienced this stuff? And I think that I can honestly say that there's a couple of things that have to happen, people. And this is what's happened in my own personal experience. But when I look at other people, then this also has to have happened. Otherwise, the spiritual evolution doesn't take place. And the two things are, either you have a large trauma in your lives, or you have a sequence of traumatic events over a long period of time, which will ultimately shake the ego to its core, to a point whereby it's going to implode. The ego has to be compromised to such a degree whereby it's on the point of giving up. And when that happens, and this is what I'm just speaking about in my last chapter, when that happens, that's when the ego has almost died. When people take their lives, they take their lives because ego is always coercing them, tormenting them, provoking them. These negative voices in our heads, which we could consider to be demonic, they may very well be demonic, but they seem to be a facet of the ego, because unless we have demons residing in us on a constant basis, which I'm not outruling, then where else do these hideously negative voices come from? How many of us have been on the top of a high building or cliff or something like that, and then a voice inside your head goes, jump. Let's see what it would like to jump. What would happen? And it's kind of like, what the fuck? And so, in recent times, I was listening to a very unfortunate woman who had real serious OCD, and she would have all these intrusive thoughts on an ongoing basis, which would be telling her to end it. and telling her that she's something that she absolutely isn't or wasn't. And it's like she's thinking, fuck off, get the fuck out of my head, you fuck. What are these things? Are they demons? Are they resident demons? You know, I've made videos about vampires, negative energies which will attach on us, and we're well aware when we are low, when we are spiritually bereft, when we are low in our energy, in our life force. That's when these negative entities take a hold, mostly. But I think they're always there. And if, for instance, I went up to a high tower at this very minute, there would be a voice in my head that's going to be suggesting, enticing, I'm just saying, what would happen if you jumped? Go on, wait, try it. It's kind of like they know that this human experience isn't real. And what's actually happening is that consciousness, spirit, is on a reconnaissance mission, gathering up information. And if you should follow that voice and jump, then consciousness would know what it felt like. And so that's another arrow to its quiver. That line of thought, for me, at my stage of development, seems to be very reasonable. And all this stuff gets more and more reasonable the longer in the tooth you become. The more you look at this very, very bizarre thing that we call a human being. There's so much going on here that it's absolutely incredible, and it's most certainly indecipherable for all the trillions and gazillions of humans that have lived, and we still don't even know what consciousness is. Well, it just speaks of itself, doesn't it? It speaks to itself, people. The reason why we don't know what consciousness is, because it's consciousness which is dreaming us, and it already knows what it is. It isn't interested in discovering what it is. It already knows it's the cosmos, but it's the little things that it wants to know. Like, what's it like for human beings to fall from a 50-story tower and splat on the concrete? He wants to know things like that. He wants to know the most beautiful and wonderful things in relation to love and joy. He wants to know the intricacies and the depths of the most hideous and painful and excruciating of experiences. That's what consciousness en masse wants. It's hungry for all of that, and that's why it keeps replicating this human being, so it can discover absolutely to infinity the experience of the human being, and then it will have a definitive human being. So far, it seems evident that it doesn't have a definitive human being. How complex would a definitive human being be? Massively complex. Too complex for just an individual brain. And so it would take the computer the size of the cosmos to work that out, to experience that. It would take an Earth probably millions of years to work that one out. And so that's how I'm seeing things. And so because I see things at this sort of depth, it makes all other conscious notions seem exceedingly mundane. The like of Philip K. Dick was out there. The like of any of these sci-fi authors, like Arthur C. Clarke, they were out there. Anybody with these seemingly crazy thoughts, they're considered to be crazy because they're vastly outside of the regular cognition of the normal human being. And I'm like, I've come to find the rest. Where are you? Who else is having these thoughts? But then it's kind of like, well, there's a guy called Philip K. Dick. He had some of those thoughts. Arthur C. Clarke. Who else is having these sort of crazy thoughts? Can I find them on the YouTube? No, all I can find is people speaking about those sort of things. What about people that actually have those thoughts, that actually are those thoughts, that, are living those thoughts? What about those sort of people? That's who I want to find. And, with exceedingly limited feedback, I'm just wondering where else to look. I make these videos and I bang them out there, potentially for the whole world to experience and to comment on, and to find if there's anybody else in agreement, and there isn't. Now, what happened there? There isn't anybody there. How did they lose this? Now you see, things like this, they're interesting for me because I pick up this ball and I give anybody in the vicinity to shout, "That's my ball." Now, nobody could have hit that ball from beyond that horizon. That was just too much of a fantastic shot. So I've got to look for another explanation. And the explanation that comes to my mind instantly is that somebody has found that ball and they have no use for it, so they've just dropped it in a very obvious place. Could have been along the fairway, but who knows where they found it. Thought, I'll just leave it down there. Then one of these golfers will find it and pick it up, because they'll come to the conclusion, well, it couldn't be anybody else's ball because whoever would have been before me would have evidently seen it, and there's nobody behind me which could have hit a ball in advance of me. So you see what I'm saying? So I have made that assumption, but I can't be positive as to where that ball came from. I'm just using my reasonable cognition, and that's what I've come up with. Top flight. Anyway, so this is just, who else would have done that? Who else would have seen that ball and then wanted to know how it got there, how it came to be? Because it's an anomaly, and I like discovering the root of anomalies, and that's why I look in a very inquiring way into the world and all things for the anomalous, because I think that they are the most interesting. The mundane doesn't interest me, it's the anomaly. And so when we find an anomaly, then to inquire into where it derived from is very interesting. It's like a deductionary, a reductionary. when we have a reductionary inquiry, then we are trying to follow back a sequence of events which would have led to that happening. If we have an induction, then we are working out how things would make manifest. If I was speaking hypothetically, how a ball could just be left on the green there, then I would think, well, maybe somebody was just about to put it into the hole, and they had an important phone call, and they immediately had to leave. Well, it's a feasible explanation, isn't it? So there's lots of lines we can think along of reductionary and induction and all sorts of things. And I suppose this is the realm of the scientist as well as the philosopher. And I used to love to listen to the great scientist, physicist Richard Feynman, because that's how his mind would always be ticking over. And it's you're in a constant realm of intrigue and excitement, and that's why he was always looking like he's pissing himself whenever he was talking to anybody, because his face was always like that, wasn't it? Looking like he was sucking on a wasp, you know, full of all the excitement and the possibilities, you know, and all this sort of thing. And so yeah, you know, well, anyway, I've forgotten the thread now of what I was speaking about. I was speaking about consciousness and varying states of consciousness, and why would anybody want to think in a certain way, why most people don't think about anything really. They're super content with not thinking about anything. And if you started talking in the pub to your mates, I found a golf ball on the putting green the other day. Well, what a fucking hell, a fucking golf ball, what are you fucking on about? Some cunt just fucking left it there, didn't they? Well, is that it? Is that your synopsis? You don't want to think about it anymore? You don't find it interesting to work through, you know, like a dozen options, which could have happened? No, it's not interested. Who fucking round is it? That's what they're interested in. And what I wanted to know is how many of you consider that you are in a similar level of inquiry like I am? Let's just say that. How many of you think similar thoughts? How many of you are, I wouldn't say in a constant acquisition for the answers, because I can turn it off whenever I want to. I can do that. And when I turn this camera off, then I will be present and I will just be observing. I will go into the listening, into the feeling, into the observing without the thinking. I can turn the thinking off whenever I want to. And that's an acquired skill, people. And, you know, I don't know exactly when I acquired that, but of course it was in this past 13 years of constant meditation. And when we start to have autonomy over our minds, when we know where this space is, where this empty space is, when we know where it is, we just go straight into it. We don't have to close our eyes and fight for it, and like, maybe it's going to come now, maybe it's not. That's all this shit you go through in the first fucking 6 months or year. But when you are an avid meditator, you found that space, you fucking found it. It's like my squirrel. You know, if it finds a place where it's going to get a few little fucking nuggets of food, it's not going to forget. And one of the things about squirrels, incidentally, they have a terrific memory of memorizing where they have buried the vast amount of their little fruits. Now then, I come up here on this golf course because Here we have the shaggy ink caps, and they're a tasty little morsel. Over here, well, it looks like, well, I wouldn't say what it looks like, because, you know, I could be wildly wrong, but that, well, no, I'm going to say what it looks like, because I think I can see a slight hint of mauve on the stipe here, and because of that curling over of that cap, that to me looks like a field bluet. And so let's have a look at this one here. They are a very tasty find. Now, when, yeah, look, it's mauve. You see mauve on the stipe here. Now, the wood bluet is a much more mauve affair. These are very tasty mushrooms, and they retain their solidity and their consistency when you cook them. They're firm and they don't go all soggy and, you know, mushy and slimy. They retain their beautiful pertness, and so they are wonderful to have in like stir fries. And what I tend to make, I make a king prawn stir fry with garlic, ginger and chili, and they are super duper tasty. Now down here we have other varieties, but this one here, all in a bunch. Now, these to me look like those mushrooms I found a week ago. Some of you remember they weren't as open as this. They were all growing together collectively like this, and I forget what they were called, but they are inedible. And we can see that it's all going on, and they all come out of the same rooting system, and so they would be a tasty morsel. And well, I've never tasted any of these before. These, no, if I was going to take some of these, then I would take them more prime than this. That one would be passable. And I think what I'll do is, just for a case of ID, I'm going to take that one as well. And whilst I am here and I'm gathering, then I'll take that one for what it's worth. And that one's been nibbled, but that one also would be, you know, worth picking to eat. So I'll put those down there and have a scout around. Now, what we got here? We have some variety of edible field mushroom. It could be horse mushroom, could be field mushroom, one of those varieties, but it's dry. It feels dry, and it's had better days, and so not interested in that. So there are lots of these particular mushrooms around. Oh, okay, bluets. Now these are field bluets, but they have opened up more than generally I have found them. Can you see that mauveness? Can you see that beautifulness? You very rarely get this, particularly on the mushroom as the size as this. So these are beautiful finds. Generally I find them in more of a button state and not in an open state, and I can't find any in the classic button shape. But now I know they are in season, then I know where I can find the classic button shaped ones, which I can pull them out of the grass without having all the dirty root on them, which you know, you need to wash off very carefully, otherwise they're gritty. Right then, I've got to wipe those down. So, alright, I was distracted. The question was, for those of you that are still on track, how many of you think in a similar way? How many of you consider that you are awakened beings? How did you become awoken? What trauma mark did you suffer? What psychedelic trip were you on? What, you know, download did you have? Because something has to have happened to move you, to shift your consciousness, because we have quite a dramatic shift, and then all of a sudden we see everybody and everything around us, the whole world, the cosmos, and what we are. We see all those in a very different way. And so I don't know whether you can get on board with where I'm coming from. Do you realize this? Do you know, can you see that something's happened? Do you just think it's madness? What the fuck's going on with you? Just put some fucking thing down there, for fuck's sake. You know, is it too much to ask? Or are you dead? That's it, are you fucking dead? Anyway, evidently I've got better things to do with my life.